Hi everyone, this is Dr. Aitsi-Selmi for another episode of Wise Wednesdays. How many slaves work for you? I discovered this week that an estimated 34 people work in conditions that we'd count as slavery work for me. That's my slavery footprint, and in this week's Wise Wednesdays you can find a link to a tool that calculates yours. It's slaveryfootprint.com, I think. So I wanted to share 8 principles around this idea that toxicity or toxic work cultures aren't just in our organizations, but they're global. And there are things we can do to reduce that toxicity whilst also improving our own lives. So number 1, remember the bigger picture and know your true power. So there are 6 degrees of separation between each of us and any human on the planet. And so within those 6 degrees, it's possible that there is someone who's working under very real slavery conditions and has very little freedom. So understanding that and remembering that helps to connect us to the wider picture, to the bigger picture, and remember that we must take a stand for our own freedom and happiness. And as we do that, remember that if we do it the right way, we're also helping others. And you may feel that you taking an action is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean is made of drops. And without the drops, there is no ocean. So remember that you have relatively and absolutely power. So be aware and use your power well. Which leads me to the second point, which is to lead sustainably. And this is the idea that there are cycles or life cycles to leadership. You don't have to always be the warrior, hero or heroine, but you don't have to stand back and be the person who's just doing the work or implementing or sitting quietly. Going through cycles is actually much closer to real leadership because you're doing what the situation requires rather than adopting a rigid style. So here are 5 principles I shared recently at an event on sustainable leadership. So this would be number 2A or number 3, and that is that it only takes one person to start something. Starting something only requires one person. So if you have an idea, start it, do something about it. Next is that to grow and sustain something requires a team. So this goes to all the rescuers and heroic leaders. Actually, I heard this sentence that heroes aren't scalable this week, which was interesting, and I believe it's true. You need good people around you. So you need to step out of your independent heroic identity and call on others for help, for input, for insights, for expertise, for support, and lots of other things that you can only get from being in a relationship with other human beings. Next is to practice compassionate ruthlessness. And this simply means that sometimes you have to make decisions. Most people probably are more comfortable talking and debating and ideating or being creative. Some people are more comfortable with taking constant action, but it's not always skillful or useful action. It might be busy action rather than doing something that's really required. So compassionate ruthlessness is something in the middle where you have to sense, you have to be in relationship with the world, with others, but you also have to make decisions. So sensing when it's time to make a decision, and if nobody else is making it is the essence of leadership. Now, if it's your life, and we're talking about self-leadership, then no one else should be making decisions about your life than you. Otherwise, you're giving others license to treat you as a child or as a slave. So make sure that you are the only person making decisions in your life. You can consult, you can negotiate, you can compromise, but make sure you are making the decisions in those negotiations and when it is that you want to compromise. Next point was know your blind spots. So for me, being a little too ruthless, particularly with myself, having a strong inner critic in this case, is my blind spot. So I have to take measures and learn from others to temper that and ask others to point out when I'm falling into my blind spot, because by definition I won't know when I'm seeing things or rather when I'm not seeing things, because it's a blind spot. So know your blind spot, which is kind of like knowing yourself. Finally, in this series of 5 insights, it's to aim for something impossible. Now, by definition, if you're going to step outside your comfort zone or do something that's not in your known world, or your world as you know it today, it is going to seem impossible because it's outside your current parameters of life and your understanding of life. So really, any worthwhile goal is by definition impossible, or it seems impossible. It's often closer than we think, but if it seems impossible, then that's a good sign, provided you're not being it's not a fantasy. It's more of a sense that it seems impossible, but it is something that you sense you want. So those are the 5 sort of sustainable leadership insights. And finally, facing uncertainty practically and emotionally. And we live in an uncertain world, and it's faster, there's more information coming at us, it's potentially more volatile, and it's very difficult to find meaning in it, because there are so many meanings being thrown at us from different directions, and we're not necessarily taught to tune into the deeper meaning and values within ourselves. We're cut off from our inner voice. So being able to be with that uncertainty, or a sense of uncertainty and a sense of the unknown, is a strength, because it's only by doing that that you can tune in eventually, just like when you're tuning a radio dial, for those of you who have had radios, that you can tune in to the good stuff, to tune into your own answers about things, tune into the wisdom in a situation, and then subsequently take the right action. As Abraham Lincoln said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Thank you very much. That's all I wanted to share today. I really appreciate your attention. I really appreciate that you're watching this and participating. I would welcome any feedback, any ideas, any questions, any comments, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great week. Bye-bye.